On Christmas morning, when everything felt peaceful and magical, my brother suddenly slammed the door right in my face after I brought him a special gift, one of the most unbelievable and emotional stories ever told. It was Christmas morning, the kind that feels soft around the edges, where even the cold air seems wrapped in warmth. The house smelled like cinnamon, pine, and the faint nostalgia of holidays we used to love when we were kids. But this year, I woke up with something different inside me. A sense of purpose. A hope I hadn't felt in years. My brother and I had been distant for a long time. Not a dramatic explosion, not a single argument, just hundreds of tiny misunderstandings that built quiet walls between us. Growing up, we were inseparable. But adulthood has a way of scattering people like there's a storm inside time itself. So this year, I decided to fix it. For months, I worked extra hours, skipped nights out, saved every spare penny. All because I wanted to buy him something that might break the ice, something personal, something he once mentioned years ago, and probably thought I'd forgotten. I didn't care about the cost. I wanted him to feel seen again. By the time I wrapped the gift, my hands were shaking, not because I was nervous about the present, but because I was terrified of trying and failing. I walked down the hallway with that gift and knocked on his door. A beat. Then the sound of footsteps. Then the door cracked open. I started to smile, but before I could even say, "Merry Christmas," the door slammed right in my face. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. A full, loud, deliberate slam. The sound echoed through the hallway like a punch to the chest. For a moment, I felt completely stupid, like I had read every signal wrong, like I was the only one trying to fix something that never mattered to him in the first place. The gift suddenly felt heavy. Heavy with disappointment. Heavy with hope that had nowhere to go. I stood there for a long moment, breathing slowly, pretending it didn't hurt. Hours passed. The house filled with voices, music, and the usual December chaos. I tried to disappear into the background, pretending everything was fine. Then, out of nowhere, he walked into the living room, holding the gift. He looked awkward, nervous, even a little embarrassed. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Hey, can we talk?" Turns out, he hadn't slammed the door because of me. Earlier that morning, he had gotten news, bad news, about his job, his bills, his future. He was overwhelmed, scared, and convinced he'd ruin Christmas for everyone. When I knocked, he panicked and pushed everyone away, including me. He regretted it instantly but didn't know how to fix it. Until now. We went outside to talk. Not yelling. Not blaming. Just two brothers finally speaking honestly for the first time in years. When he opened the gift, he froze. Not because of the object itself, but because he realized I'd been paying attention to him even when we weren't close. That I remembered something small he said long ago. That I cared. He hugged me. A real hug. The kind where someone lets their guard down and lets you in. Christmas didn't magically solve every problem between us, but it cracked the door open. Ironically, the same door he had slammed shut hours earlier. And sometimes that's enough. A crack. A moment. A chance. A gift that wasn't just a gift. A slammed door that opened something bigger. A morning that changed everything. We sat outside on the back porch, our breath turning into pale white clouds in the cold December air. The world felt strangely quiet, like the universe was holding its breath, waiting to see what we'd say next. The Christmas lights flickered across the snowy backyard, casting soft colors on the ground, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel like we were strangers. My brother held the gift in his hands the way someone holds something fragile, not because the object was delicate, but because the meaning behind it was. He finally spoke. "I didn't know how to let you in," he said, staring down at his shoes. "I didn't know if you even wanted to be part of my life anymore." That hit harder than the slammed door. Because beneath everything, every fight, every silence, every unfinished conversation, there was fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of not being enough. fear of trying and failing. And suddenly, all the things I had blamed him for over the years didn't seem as simple as I thought. "I never stopped wanting that," I said quietly. "I just didn't know how to reach you." He laughed, sadly. "Guess neither of us did." There was a long pause, but not uncomfortable. It felt like our words were finally catching up to all the years we had spent apart. He unwrapped the gift slowly. When he pulled away the paper and saw what was inside, he froze again, not from confusion, but from emotion crawling across his face, raw and unfiltered. It was the model car we had built together when we were kids. The limited edition version he always wanted, but the one we never finished after our father left. The original had broken years ago in a move, but I had found a collector online, tracked it down, restored it piece by piece, and added a small engraved plate on the bottom. "For the memories we lost. For the ones we can still make." When he read the engraving, something inside him cracked open. He didn't cry loudly. He didn't break down. Instead, tears just gathered silently in his eyes, the kind that speak louder than any words ever could. "I thought I'd never see this again," he whispered. "How did you?" "I remembered," I said. "That's all." He let out a shaky breath. But what he said next changed everything. "There's something else I need to tell you." I felt my stomach tighten. His tone shifted, subtle, serious. "I didn't get bad news about my job this morning," he continued. "The truth is, I lost it 2 months ago. 2 months. 2 months of stress. 2 months of pretending everything was fine. 2 months of shutting everyone out. Including me. I didn't want anyone to know," he said. "Especially you. I thought you'd think I messed up my life again." "Again?" I repeated. He nodded slowly. "I've been making a lot of mistakes lately. And instead of reaching out, I just closed the door. On everyone. On you." The metaphor wasn't lost on either of us. He continued talking, his voice low but honest in a way I hadn't heard in years, about the pressure, the fear of failure, the weight of trying to rebuild himself alone. And the more he spoke, the more I realized how much pain he had been carrying in silence. Then he said something I never expected. "I slammed the door this morning because I thought, if I saw your face, I'd break. I didn't think I deserved a gift. Or forgiveness. Or you trying." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. "I didn't come with a gift to fix your life," I said. "I came to tell you that you don't have to face it alone. Not anymore." For a long moment, he didn't say anything. He just nodded, swallowing hard. And then, for the first time in years, we talked like brothers again. Really talked. About everything we had ignored, avoided, or buried. And with every word, it felt like we were piecing together a part of our childhood we thought was lost forever. As the night went on, something strange happened, something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the movie kind. Not magical fireworks or dramatic music. A simpler peace. The kind you feel when someone you love finally lets you see their broken parts, and trusts you not to run. Before we went back inside, my brother glanced at me and said, "Thanks for knocking on my door today." I smiled. "Even though you slammed it?" He smirked. "Especially because I slammed it. Because sometimes you need a door to close loudly. To realize how badly you want it to open again. And on that Christmas night, it finally did. The next day didn't feel like the usual day after Christmas. It felt like waking up in a different version of my life, one where things were finally shifting, even if only by a few inches. My brother knocked on my door that morning. A soft knock. Careful. Almost symbolic. When I opened it, he stood there holding 2 mugs of coffee, one exactly how I like it, a detail I didn't think he remembered. "I figured, since you came to my door yesterday, I should come to yours today," he said with a shy smile. It was small, but it mattered more than he knew. We ended up sitting in the kitchen for hours, talking about everything we had missed over the past few years. Not just big things, little ones too. The movies he watched alone. The books I never told him I wrote. The struggles he tried to hide. The wins I never celebrated with him because we were too busy pretending we didn't care. But the truth was, we always cared. We were just bad at showing it. Around noon, he finally told me the whole truth about losing his job. How he had been sending out applications every night. How he'd gone to interviews pretending everything was fine while secretly panicking about rent and bills. And then something unexpected happened. I told him about a friend of mine, a manager at a local tech company, who had been complaining weeks ago about needing someone exactly with my brother's skills. My brother just stared at me. "You knew someone? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I shrugged. We weren't exactly on speaking terms. And I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding like I was trying to fix you. He exhaled slowly, looking both relieved and guilty. "I'm not broken," he said softly. "But I was scared. And I guess I acted like someone who was." I nodded. We all act like that sometimes. For the first time, he didn't argue. He just asked, "Do you think they'd still talk to me?" "Yeah," I said. "I can text him right now." And I did. Small moment. Big impact. Later that evening, while cleaning up some old boxes to make space in his room, my brother accidentally knocked over an old wooden container from our childhood. Papers spilled everywhere. Old drawings, school awards, random junk we collected as kids. But hidden between them was something neither of us had seen in years. A folded envelope with our father's handwriting. The date. December 23rd, 10 years ago. My brother froze. "You don't think," he whispered. We opened it together. Not rushed. Almost afraid. Inside was a handwritten letter from our father, the one who left without explanation. The one who disappeared from our lives like a ghost. The letter began. "To my sons. If you are reading this, it means I failed to deliver it myself." My brother's breath hitched. He sat down slowly, as if the weight of the words pushed him into the chair. I kept reading. "I know leaving hurt you both. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I didn't know how to be the father you deserved. But one day, I hope you grow strong enough to lean on each other the way I couldn't lean on anyone. If you do that, you will have something I never had, a brother who stays." When I finished reading, the silence in the room wasn't empty, it was electric. Heavy. Alive. My brother wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "He knew," he whispered. "He knew the only way we'd get through life was together." I nodded, my throat tight. And then he said something I'll never forget. Maybe this Christmas wasn't just about us fixing things. Maybe it was about doing what he never could. Being there. Staying. Trying. Together. The letter wasn't a miracle. It didn't erase the past. But it cracked open another door we didn't know existed. 2 slammed doors in 2 days, one literal, one emotional, both opening to something new. That night we took a drive. No destination. No music. Just 2 brothers sitting in quiet understanding, letting the winter roads lead us wherever they wanted. At one point my brother said, "You know, for the first time in a long time, I don't feel alone." I glanced at him. "You never were." "Yeah," he said with a soft laugh. "But now I finally believe it." Outside, snow began to fall, slow, delicate, almost cinematic. Like the universe was gently painting over the old scars. And somewhere between those softly falling flakes and the quiet hum of the car engine, I realized something. Sometimes healing doesn't come from big dramatic moments. Sometimes it comes from the quiet ones. The ones where someone chooses to stay. To try. To open the door, even after slamming it shut. Christmas didn't change everything. But it changed enough. And for us, that was more than enough. The next morning felt different. Not because of Christmas, not because of the snow gently melting on the rooftops, and not even because my brother and I had finally started repairing the fragile bridge between us. It felt different because something was about to happen, something neither of us knew was coming. Around 10 a.m., my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. No caller ID. Just silence for half a ring before I picked up. Hello? At first, I heard nothing. Just the soft static of a bad signal. I almost hung up until I heard a voice, shaky, low, the kind that sounded like it belonged to someone who had lived through too much. Is this the older brother? I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Because even though I hadn't heard that voice in over a decade, I recognized it instantly. It was him. Our father. My heart started pounding. The room spun slightly. My brother was in the kitchen making breakfast, completely unaware of the storm suddenly brewing in the next room. I swallowed hard. Dad? A silence that felt like an entire lifetime passed between that single word. Then he spoke again, broken, hesitant, full of regret that clung to every syllable. I didn't think you'd pick up. I almost didn't, I admitted. I understand, he whispered. You have every right not to. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself, but my hands trembled anyway. What do you want? I asked, not coldly, but carefully, the way you speak when you're afraid the next words might shatter you. He let out a shaky breath. I want to explain. And I know it's too late. I know I don't deserve to. But I've been trying to find the courage for years. My throat tightened. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to listen. Before I could say a word, he continued. I heard you found the letter. I froze again. How do you know? I whispered. Because I left it with someone I trusted. Someone who promised that one day, when the time was right, it would end up in your hands. I felt the world tilt. Our father had planned this. All those years ago. Before the silence. Before he disappeared. But why now? I asked. Why after so many years? His voice cracked. Because I'm sick, he said quietly. And I don't know how much time I have left. My chest tightened like someone was squeezing the air out of me. I didn't know what to say. Did I owe him sympathy? Did he deserve it? Did I have the right to feel angry and sad at the same time? He kept talking gently, almost pleading. I'm not calling because I want forgiveness. I'm calling because I want you and your brother to have something I never had, a family you can rely on. I want to hear your voices before it's too late. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes, not for him, but for the years we lost. For the childhood that ended without explanation. For all the questions that lived inside us like ghosts. Then he said the last thing I ever expected. I'd like to see you. If you'll let me. Before I could respond, my brother walked into the room, biting into a piece of toast, stopping dead when he saw my face. What's wrong? He asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I put the phone on speaker. The moment our father said, Son, my brother's entire body froze. His eyes widened in disbelief and something else, fear, hope, anger, longing, all fighting inside him at once. He opened his mouth but no words came out. The silence between the three of us stretched so long it felt like the world had stopped spinning. Finally, my brother whispered, Dad? A sound escaped our father, half sob, half exhale. A sound of a man who had been waiting a decade to hear that voice. Yeah, he whispered. It's me. I looked at my brother. My brother looked at me. And in that moment, we both realized. This story wasn't just about a slammed door. It wasn't just about a Christmas gift. It wasn't even about us reconciling. It was about something much bigger. A door in our past had just creaked open, one we thought was sealed forever. And now, we had to decide whether to walk through it. The drive to the clinic felt endless. Not because it was far, but because neither of us knew what waited on the other side. Every mile felt heavier, thicker, like the air inside the car was turning into something we had to push through just to breathe. My brother stared out the window the whole time, jaw clenched, fingers tapping anxiously on his knee. I kept both hands tight on the steering wheel, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What do you say to a man who walked out of your life? What do you say to the person who shaped your childhood by not being there? As we pulled into the parking lot, my brother finally spoke. I don't know if I'm ready for this. Neither am I said. But we're here. Together. He nodded slowly, inhaled deeply, then we stepped out into the biting winter air. The hospital building stood tall and silent, its windows reflecting the pale gray sky. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly, the faint smell of antiseptic hanging in the air. We checked in at the desk, and the nurse led us down a long hallway painted in muted colors, too calm for the storm happening inside us. Room 214. She stopped in front of the door. He's awake, she said gently. But he's weak. Keep it calm. Calm. Right. As if anything about this moment could be calm. My brother hesitated. His hand hovered near the doorknob, shaking slightly. I placed my hand over his, steadying him. Ready? I whispered. No, he said honestly. But let's go anyway. We opened the door. And there he was. Our father. Older than I expected. Thinner. His once dark hair now almost entirely gray. Tubes connected to his arm, monitors beeping softly beside him. He looked fragile. Like a strong man worn down by time and guilt. He turned his head slowly toward us. When he saw us standing there, his breath hitched, and his eyes instantly filled with tears. My boys, he whispered. The sound of those two words nearly broke something inside me. My brother froze, rooted to the spot, every emotion flickering across his face: anger, sadness, confusion, longing. Dad reached out a trembling hand, as if afraid to reach too far. I didn't think you'd come, he said softly. I stepped forward first, not trusting my voice, not trusting my legs, but forcing myself to move. My brother followed a few seconds later, slower, stiffer, his eyes locked on the man we used to call Dad, but hadn't seen in 10 years. Dad smiled weakly, though it was a smile drenched in regret. You both grew up, he whispered. I missed everything. My brother's voice cracked for the first time since we entered. Yeah, he said. You did. Dad closed his eyes, the words hitting him like a blade he knew he deserved. I know, he whispered. And I'm so sorry. Silence fell. Heavy. Dense. Unbearable. My brother crossed his arms. His voice shook with anger he'd been carrying for half his life. Sorry? That's it. You disappear, leave us to figure out everything alone, and now you show up when you're sick and say you're sorry? Dad nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know the truth. What truth? My brother snapped. Dad looked at us with eyes full of pain. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I believed I was hurting you more by staying. My brother shook his head. That's not an excuse. No, Dad agreed. It's not. But it's the truth. I finally found my voice. Then why didn't you come back? Why didn't you call? Dad swallowed hard. Because shame grows, he whispered. And the longer I stayed away, the more certain I became that you were better off without me. My brother looked away, his jaw trembling. You weren't supposed to decide that for us. Dad reached out again, his fingers trembling. You're right, he whispered. And that's why I wanted to see you. Not to fix the past, but to stop running from it. The monitor beside him beeped gently, a slow rhythm matching the quiet tension in the room. Dad took a deep breath, gathering what little strength he had left. There's something else I need to tell you, he said. Something I've never told anyone. My brother and I exchanged confused glances. Dad's voice grew quieter, almost a whisper. When I left, I thought I was protecting you from me. A pause. But the truth is, I was also protecting you from someone else. My heart dropped. Who? I asked. Dad's eyes darkened with a pain we didn't recognize. Someone who wanted to hurt our family. he whispered. Someone I kept away for years. My brother stepped closer, suddenly alert. Who are you talking about? Dad looked at us with fear in his eyes. Your mother's brother, he said. Your uncle. The room went still. A chill ran down my spine. My brother's breath caught. What do you mean? I asked. We haven't seen him since we were kids. Dad nodded slowly. And that was on purpose. My brother's voice trembled. What did he do? Dad looked away, ashamed. Things I should have protected you from sooner. Things I feared would repeat if I stayed. That's why I left. Not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you too much. The weight of his words crashed over us like ice water. This was no longer just a story about abandonment. It was about secrets, protection, fear, and something darker, something buried long ago. My brother looked at me, his face pale, his eyes wide with a realization that neither of us wanted to confront. And in that fragile, terrifying moment, I understood. The past hadn't finished with us. Not even close.